Googies. If you guys have been watching my stuff for a long time, you know that I love Googies. It's a character I used to play, but it's a long time ago in a meta far, far away. Back before this game existed on home console, but was an arcade cabinet, it was my main character and the first character I ever got into the orange ranks on arcade, which felt like a really big deal back then. It's been many years, the game has changed, the character has changed, and I don't know that much about how to play him these days, but I have to say, messing around on him today, I found a surprising amount of stuff that I think can be really solid. This is not known for being a high tier character, and don't get me wrong, he definitely isn't, but I think he's slept on at least to an extent. I probably wouldn't put him in my own personal bottom 3 right now, and he's standing across from his daughter here, Katarina. That's their connection in the lore, by the way, if you're interested. But I think he might even be a slightly better character than her right now. I'm not sure about that, so don't quote me on it, but there you go. But the first thing to notice about this character is just that the fun factor is extremely huge, because these moves have such a meaty kinetic feel to them. They're so satisfying to connect with that you're going to have a lot of fun playing this character. And I've decided that this week I'm going to try and get back into Gigas a little bit. So tonight I'm going to be taking him online, maybe create some gameplay highlights for you guys. We'll see what happens. Before I start talking about the moves, I just want to say I'm sorry that I'm losing my voice a little bit. Don't worry, I'm not sick. I sometimes lose my voice when I do a lot of talking. But right now when I go outside and people hear me speak, some people are like scared to be around me or worry about me. So I just wanted to let you know that I'm absolutely fine. Okay, I should just mention the block punishment quickly because it's such a no-brainer and such high quality of life, honestly, because your 10 frame is one of the best 10 frame moves in all of Tekken. It's so good that you're going to use it for pretty much everything between 10 and 14. Get the range, get the damage, get the knockdown, get the wall splat. It's just really great. I think it's worse on block now than it used to be back in my Gigas playing days. So you can't really use it for a panic get off me move anymore. You need to know that the punish is going to connect, but when you do, it's massively powerful and just a really great move. For 15, you have the down 2. I think this is really good. The range is massive and you get really high damage combos with this character, especially thanks to your excavator, which is this go-to combo ender that you have. We've talked about a bunch of these moves on these recent character overviews where you have one of those great moves that gives you unscaled damage on the final hit of your combo. And I think in Tekken 7, Excavator is pretty much the godfather of all of those moves, and it gives you 16 on the final hit, which is insanely massive. So it basically means that even if you do tiny short combos where you spin right away, you're always going to get nice, healthy, high numbers with this character. So the combo game is very solid, very healthy numbers. He's even better at the wall, but we should talk about that a little bit later. For the while standing stuff, this is your 11 frame. Your 4 is slower, but this is really good. It's a very solid move. The 4 is 13. And it's a new Punisher for him. It's a buff that he got, and I think it's really nice because there are many lows in this game that are abusable and specifically minus 13. And now that you can get this big punish and solid good Oki afterwards, people are gonna hesitate to abuse those lows against you. So I think that's great. Your only weakness in terms of punishment really is the fact that your while standing launcher, which is the 3, is 18 frames to impact as opposed to 15. But then again, you do have while standing 2-3 for a massive hit for 15, and I think that's going to be enough to discourage people from abusing launch punishable lows that are minus 15 or around there. Next, I want to talk about this character's gimmick and his balancing, and this is where it gets really interesting. I've heard people say that the developers have said that the reason they struggle to balance Gigas well is they don't know how to make him stronger without making him too much of an annoying gimmick character. So what is the sort of gimmick that this character has? Well, they wanted to make a character that was scary to block against, and they did that in 2 ways. First of all, they gave him one of the most powerful and scary throws in all of Tekken. This is Overkill. When this connects near the wall, it's 70 damage and massively powerful. The other thing they did is they gave him these moves that he can charge up and put his opponent at a massive amount of block stun, and then he can walk in and apply guaranteed for the most part mix-up from his stance Goliath, where he mixes a big mid with an unblockable high, right? And the reason they can't really take this much further in terms of the charge-up moves, well, let's talk about the throw first. The problem with the throw is just this. It's really good unless your opponent breaks it, because they didn't give you a throw mix-up for it. The reason Giant Swing is so extremely good near the wall for King is that King has a bunch of different throws that he can mix in and keep the opponent guessing. This throw overkill is extremely good as long as your opponent can't break it on reaction, but if they can neutralize it every time. So that's a big weakness of the throw. But in terms of these charge up moves, I think they've buffed them and taken them to a point where they're honestly kind of good right now. I'm kind of happy with them, and I agree that you couldn't take them much further, because if I charge this up and I walk in here and I mix my opponent up, maybe I knock them down, I go up and I do it again for the Oki. I mean, the player experience for the opponent isn't very good, because they are spending so much time just standing there watching me. It's not a very interactive experience, you know. And so you don't want these moves to be too good, but I think they're good enough that they can be seriously useful now. And so this is an area of the character that I really want to explore right now. So the way they work is this. You can charge, this is for 3-2, let's use this for an example. So if I do this and I charge it up and Katarina blocks it, I can go in and mix from Goliath. The longer I walk, I have two like lengths I can walk, and if I walk really far, the damage becomes massive. But while I'm charging up here, I'm very susceptible to interruptions, specifically counter hits. So if Katarina decides to do a standing 4 in that gap right there, she's going to blow me up for massive damage. But there is a reason she might not want to do that, because if I don't charge the move, I just hit with it like this, and she can't interrupt this even with a 1 jab. I can now walk forward. This is a recent buff to the character. I can walk forward, I can do this belly flop into a guaranteed grounded 2, and that entire sequence is actually guaranteed. So I mean, it's massive damage, 37 to start, and then 16 plus 16 for another, what, 32 for the follow-up right there. So that's seriously scary, and it's going to discourage people from trying to interrupt the charge-up moves. And so Gigas puts himself at a significant amount of risk applying these, but he also has a big opportunity for damage. So I think the balance is sort of there, and you just need to alternate and really read your opponent. But if you're able to do that, then I think there is some serious potential in these moves. And I kind of agree with the developers that there's not much more you can give them, because then they just become kind of annoying to play against, you know. He has a different stance, another stance called Golem. This is Goliath, where he walks. This is Golem. And Golem is another stance where I don't really agree with the direction that they've taken. I kind of like Goliath, but I'm not a big fan of Golem. So with Golem, you have this jump back to create whiffs. That's pretty cool, and you can whiff punish. Kind of gimmicky, doesn't work all that often, I think. Then you have a bunch of massive mids, and you're supposed to mix these with overkill, because they've given you overkill from stance. And so Gigas has kind of a Negan problem now, where you can mix mids with throws, but if the opponent can break the throw on reaction, then they can neutralize the mix-up every time. And so, not a huge fan of Golem, but if the opponent isn't breaking this on reaction, then it becomes really good. I think the way you're supposed to use overkill is just be unpredictable with it and try and surprise the opponent. You have a bunch of moves that are like one massive hit into another massive hit, like this, for example, and this new string. And so if you do the first part of that and the opponent is bracing for the impact of that second one, use that space to buffer the input of overkill and get it out really fast and surprise them. It's not difficult to do if you've practiced throw buffering. If you are new to throw buffering in the game and it's something you need to practice, my recommendation would be start with a down back 3, because this has such a long, nice, slow wind up that you have plenty of time to do the buffer, and then just end with forward 1+2 once the animation ends, and you're going to get it out nice and fast. And then you can, you know, progressively move on to faster lows, and eventually you want to be fast enough that you can buffer it off of a 1 jab, for example. I think it's important to know how to throw buffer with this character or any character that uses a lot of grappling. But You can use that to throw it out. If the opponent is crisp and they break it, not that big of a deal, but if it does connect, you know, it can be massive damage. So I do think overkill is good, and I will use it when I go online with the character. He's also good at closing the gap. This 4-4-2 is extremely good for that. Dips in from way downtown. It's safe on block, and it gives you wall splats. And he also has this amazing running move with a big, slow, chunky, deceptively, you know, wide hitbox that you can really put pressure on people with. So I like his gap closers. Let's talk a little bit about the wall. I think the wall game with this character is really quite cool. Let's go restart. There we go. So back in my day, the old wall combo that you used to do was one jab into down forward 4-1+2. Still works, is still good damage. You also have the option of just throwing, because he has an air throw, and you can get a good chunk of damage for doing that. It's also fun to do because he really ragdolls the opponent here. Some wall splats you can't do it. It needs to be a wall splat where you have the time for the high to connect the throw. But it works, for example, after the 4-4-2. Just fine. Now, another option you have, an old one, is forward 2-1 into wrench kick. I think they nerfed the damage of wrench kick, but it still seems really solid. So you can get high damage for that. And then the new max damage is forward 2-1 and then the delay on the final hit here. And if you get that 60% scaling on that, I think you can get, I think that's supposed to be the highest damage you can get at the wall right now. There you go. Yeah, you can see that's really high damage. So his wall combos are good. You still have overkill at the wall. I think your Oki is good at the wall. Obviously, your charge up pressure and your unblockable and stuff like this becomes good at the wall. Another really cool thing that I think might be one of his best moves at the moment, especially for Oki, is this back 1+2. This right now is +4 on block, +5 on hit. So massive advantage. Not massive, but big enough that it really matters. The range on this is bigger than you would suppose. Look, it even has like a bit of ghost range and a little bit of a backswing. So I think this is like in a category with Brian's back 1. It's not quite that move, but it's that area of power. And you can use this to set up all kinds of stuff, throws and counter hits. I think it's one of his best moves right now. I would be using this a lot. And then for counter hits, you have some pretty cool stuff. This 13 frame high just gives you 64 damage up front, so just a massive combo and you don't have to do anything. If you're near the wall, it's one of the most fun moves ever because he pushes them into the wall and you can follow up with a full combo. He also has, I think, one of the fastest counter hit mids in the entire game in the shape of this down forward 3. Most counter hit launchers that are mid impact at 15. So for example, down forward 4 from Katarina, but this move is 13, and thanks to his new spin move, the combo you can get here is massive. So I mean, I guess you could do something like this for the combo. Look at that, huge damage and wall combo on top of that would be great, right? So I think this is good. It's just risky, you know, because it's very punishable, launch punishable on the extension, and then you're supposed to discourage punishment with the final extension here, but that's high and duckable, so you can delay it though. So I mean, again, you have to, be willing to take risks and expose yourself, but they've at least given you some stuff to mitigate that risk and keep you dangerous, so I really like that. Let's talk about this new move, down back 3-2. This is completely new, and when I first saw this I wasn't a big fan because it's obviously like a spin move that you're supposed to use in combos, but his combos were already kind of good, so I was like, why didn't you buff another aspect of his character? But now that I've used the string a bit, I honestly have warmed up to it a little bit. So the way this works is you do the low, it's minus on hit and block, a very minus on block, but then you have the high extension, which is a spin move and a normal hit launcher. So that's really great, and it's safe on block. So what the opponent has to do is they have to duck the second hit of this. But what if you don't do the extension? You just do the first part and then you do a mid, and they're ducking, and you're going to connect with these mids, right? So there's a mix-up potential. The mix-up isn't real. It's kind of like a plastic mix-up because, like I said, you don't get actual advantage on hit. You're -4 on hit, but the hesitation can create the space you need for the mix-up. So I think that can work, and it can, I mean, you might even stay down here and do cheeky full crouch stuff. Who knows? But I think it has potential, and it has buffed his combo game quite a bit because you have this launcher, and this launcher, they used to be kind of weak in terms of damage. But now that you have this, you can get really high damage combos for hitting with these moves. And so, massive buff to the combo game, and just a very decent string overall, so I like it. I also want to mention before we wrap this up that I think your counter hit game is a lot of fun. So the way your rage drive works is we talked about how you can charge up your moves and get mix-ups from Goliath. And so the way this works is he sends out a shockwave if you look at his body, and that causes the stun that a charge up move would cause and gives you the Goliath mix-up even if you haven't connected with a move to the opponent. But it also has the added benefit of connecting like a string into your charge up back too, meaning that you can double up on those and push your opponent from the middle of the screen all the way to the wall, where you're very dangerous, especially when you have these, you know, unblockables here. So I love the rage drive. I think it's a fun idea. It's susceptible to people who are in the air, so people who try and neutralize this, they jump a lot and stuff, but that's fine. You know, it should have some sort of weakness. You shouldn't be able to just, you know, guaranteed mix up from full screen without thinking first, you know. So a lot of cool stuff, cool power crush game, this new weird power crushing wall bounce. So a bunch of cool new toys, and I think the mix-ups are kind of there. You know, the lows are good. This is slow-ish but powerful high crush. You know, you get guaranteed follow-ups on counter hit. The down back 3 we talked about. The down back 4 is very fast at 14, deceptively good range. So a great little round ender with high crush as well. The down 3 is not as good as it used to be back in the arcade days. This used to be a massively abusive move that you could really, really just take rounds with. They balanced that out, so it's not as good anymore. But I think the mix-ups are there. The gap closing, the wall game, the combo game. His big weakness is really just frame data on neutral pokes, and I think the best one is probably down forward 4. It's only -3/+3, but it's got range, 14 frames to impact. The down forward 1 and moves like this, the down forward 3 by itself as a poke, they aren't really that great, and so he can be bullied in the close range. But if he gets space to move around and have some fun, then I think he's really cool. His movement is impeded by his large body, but then again, Tekken is kind of moving away from movement and more towards solid mix-ups sort of in the meta game lately, and more with every patch, I think. So maybe it is the time to explore this character and give him some time to shine. I hope you give him a shot. I'm going to play him today. I've already decided. I'm excited about him. My juices are flowing. I'm going to get some snacks and do a session tonight, maybe do some gameplay videos. We'll see. But give him a shot, because he'll probably surprise you. He's not great, but he's not that bad either. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys again very soon.